All right, so ever get that feeling like some words just get thrown around so much that they totally lose all their original meaning?
Right.
Like viral doesn't even mean what it used to.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Well, today's deep dive is all about a word that's gone through kind of a wild transformation.
Okay.
The word siren.
Interesting.
Buckle up, because we are about to unravel literally centuries of myth and misconception.
Yeah, the siren is fascinating.
Yeah.
It's amazing how much the image has changed over time.
For sure.
Really, we're talking about like a journey from ancient Greece to modern movies,
Oh,
and
right, no,
it's
no,
not what you'd expect.
I mean, most of us hear siren and we think of a gorgeous mermaid, right?
Right.
Maybe with a little bit of a dangerous streak,
Yeah.
luring sailors to their doom, that whole thing. But, like, where did that even come from?
Well, that image is actually really far from the original Greek sirens.
Really?
You got to think more bird woman than fish-tailed temptress.
Ah, yeah.
These were creatures of knowledge and prophecy. They were more associated with guiding souls to the underworld.
Wow.
Not seducing them, you know?
Interesting.
You can even find them on like ancient tombstones
Really?
depicted as these benevolent figures.
Hold on, tombstones.
Yeah.
That doesn't exactly scream dangerous seductress to me.
Not at all. And get this, the word siren
Okay.
was used as an insult between orators in ancient Greece.
Ah.
And it wasn't about sexual temptation.
Oh.
It was more about accusing someone of using like misleading words or wisdom.
So like deception, but not the way that we
Exactly.
think of it today.
Yeah, it's about deception, but in a very different way.
Okay, so then where did this whole like sexy, dangerous siren thing come from?
Right?
How did we get from tombstones to like horror movies?
Well, this is where things get really interesting.
Okay.
There's another figure from Greek mythology that we need to bring in here.
Okay.
The Lamia. Now, the Lamia was known for seduction,
Okay.
but with a much darker twist. So picture this. You have a creature with a snake's tail lurking by the sea.
Okay.
And yes, luring sailors to their deaths.
Okay, now that's starting to sound a little more familiar.
Right.
So are you saying that like the Lamia is the missing link in the evolution of the siren?
Exactly. Over time, these two separate myths start to kind of blend together,
Okay.
especially in late antiquity and the Middle Ages.
Huh.
Think of it as like a mythological mashup
Okay.
where the siren's connection to the supernatural
Right.
and the Lamia's seductive, dangerous nature
Yeah.
start to combine.
Okay, so but why did those myths blend?
Right.
Was it just like coincidence, or was there something bigger going on?
Well, that's where the medieval church comes into play.
Okay.
And things take a really fascinating turn.
Uh-huh.
You see, the church at that time was really concerned with male chastity,
Okay.
and they saw female sexuality as like a major threat.
So the siren with her newfound Lamia-inspired allure becomes like the perfect symbol of that danger.
Precisely, the siren-lamia hybrid becomes like the embodiment of temptation.
Wow.
You know, everything men were supposed to resist, and this anxiety about female sexuality.
Yeah.
It really had a huge impact on how the siren was depicted in like art and literature.
That's true.
For example, bestiaries, you know, those like illustrated books of beasts that were really popular in the Middle Ages.
Yeah.
They were just full of warnings about the siren's deceptive beauty and the danger she posed to men.
So the siren went from underworld guide to basically like a symbol of sin.
Yeah, it's a
Yeah,
powerful,
it's a shift.
it's a really powerful example of how societal anxieties can shape the way that we understand and portray these mythical figures.
For sure.
So the siren, who was once this creature of knowledge and guidance,
Right.
becomes this cautionary tale about the dangers of female allure,
Right.
reflecting the church's desire to control and suppress female sexuality.
It makes you wonder if there are other mythical creatures that went through like similar transformations based on the anxieties of their time.
Oh, I'm sure.
But what happened next?
That-
Did the siren just stay this symbol of sin forever?
Not quite. The
Okay.
story takes another little twist here.
Okay.
Around this time, the term mermaid starts to emerge
Okay.
as a kind of catch-all term
Gotcha.
for these blended creatures.
Okay.
It's like mermaid became the umbrella term,
Right.
encompassing aspects of both the siren and the Lamia.
So is that it then?
Well,
Are sirens and mermaids basically the same thing from this point on?
not so fast.
Oh.
Here's where things get a little tragic.
Okay.
The Lamia, despite its influence on the mermaid image,
Right.
kind of fades from popular consciousness.
But why would the Lamia disappear if it was so influential?
Right.
Especially since it like fit the church's narrative so well.
It's a bit complicated and, frankly, a little unfair. You see, the Lamia was associated with what were considered women's myths.
Okay.
These were stories passed down by women, often focusing on, like, protecting themselves and their children. And these myths were often dismissed by the church as unimportant or superstitious or even dangerous.
So because the Lamia was tied to these women's myths, it was just basically deemed irrelevant.
Essentially, yes.
Wow.
And it's a reminder of how history is written.
Right.
And whose stories actually get prioritized.
For sure.
And to make matters even more confusing,
okay,
there's this really wild story about a mistranslation in a medieval encyclopedia that transformed the Lamia even further.
A mistranslation. You got to tell me more about that.
It's a classic case of lost in translation.
Yeah.
So this encyclopedia was translating from Arabic.
Okay.
And they somehow mixed things up.
Right.
Instead of the seductive snake woman.
Right.
The Lamia became this lumbering four-legged beast.
Oh my God.
That destroyed trees.
Wow.
It's almost comical.
Yeah.
But it also shows how fragile these myths can be.
For sure.
You know how easily their meanings can be twisted or lost over time?
Wow. So a simple translation error completely changes the mythical landscape.
Right.
It makes you realize how much of history is based on, like, interpretation.
Absolutely.
And how easily those interpretations can be skewed.
Yeah.
But hold on. If the Lamia faded from memory, how did it make a comeback?
Right.
You mentioned the Victorians, right?
You're absolutely right.
Okay.
We'll dive into the Victorian era's fascination with water women and the Lamia's surprising revival in part 2.
All right, cliffhanger.
It's a fascinating chapter.
Okay.
In the evolution of the siren myth. And trust me, it's full of surprises. Welcome back. So we left off with the Lamia fading into obscurity.
Right.
Thanks to the church dismissing these so-called women's myths.
Yeah, it's so fascinating how these ancient myths, they really reflect the anxieties of their time.
Yeah.
Makes you wonder what our modern myths say about us.
That's a great point. And speaking of anxieties, you'd think the Victorian era, with its reputation for, like, repressing sexuality, would want to just keep the Lamia buried. But that's not what happened.
Really?
It's really surprising.
So what was it about the Victorians that brought the Lamia back from the mythological graveyard?
Well, despite their emphasis on morality and, like, propriety, the Victorians were also fascinated by the dangerous and the beautiful and water women, especially those with a hint of mystery and danger, became a really popular subject in Victorian art.
So are you saying that they were drawn to the allure of this Siren Lamia figure, even though it represented something that they were supposed to fear?
Exactly.
It's so interesting.
Think about, like, all those paintings of these seductive women emerging from the water. Often with this, like, melancholic or even sinister air. It was a way to explore those anxieties around, like, female sexuality and power while still indulging in a bit of fantasy.
Right, like they couldn't resist the allure of the forbidden.
Exactly.
Which makes me think of Hans Christian Andersen's The Little Mermaid. That came out during the Victorian era, right?
It did.
And it definitely plays with that idea of a mermaid longing for something more, even at a great cost.
You're right on the mark.
Yeah.
The Little Mermaid perfectly captures that Victorian fascination with the mermaid's yearning for, like, love and acceptance, even if it means sacrificing her voice and enduring immense pain.
Right. But The Little Mermaid isn't exactly a straightforward siren story.
Right.
Like, she doesn't lure anyone to their death.
Yeah.
In fact, she's actually quite selfless. So how does that fit into, like, the evolution of the siren myth?
That's a great question.
Yeah.
I think The Little Mermaid represents a really important shift in how we view mermaids, and by extension Sirens. She's not just a temptress or a monster. She's like a complex character with desires and dreams and vulnerabilities.
It's almost like the mermaid is becoming more humanized.
Exactly.
More relatable.
More relatable. And that trend continues into modern interpretations of the mermaid myth. For instance, there's been this growing movement within the LGBTQ+ community, particularly among trans individuals, to embrace the mermaid as a symbol of transformation and self-acceptance.
That's really interesting. I could see how the idea of transforming one's body to align with their true self would resonate with the mermaid's journey.
It's a really powerful reinterpretation of the myth.
Yeah.
Reclaiming the mermaid's power of transformation. And applying it to, like, a contemporary struggle for identity and acceptance.
Okay, so we've gone from ancient Greece to the Victorians to modern interpretations.
Yeah.
It's incredible how this one figure has evolved and taken on like new meanings over time.
It is.
But what about the original siren?
Right.
The one associated with knowledge and prophecy. Did that aspect get lost along the way?
Not entirely. It's definitely been overshadowed by the more like seductive and dangerous interpretations.
Right.
But that connection to knowledge is still there.
Okay.
Lurking beneath the surface.
Gotcha.
Remember in Homer's Odyssey how the sirens don't actually try to seduce Odysseus with physical pleasure?
Yeah, they offer him knowledge of the past and present.
Exactly.
It's like they're saying, come closer and we'll reveal the secrets of the universe.
Exactly. And that speaks to like a really important aspect of the original siren myth.
Okay.
They represent not just the allure of the unknown, but also the seductive power of knowledge itself.
So it's not just about physical desire.
Right.
It's also about the desire for understanding.
Yes.
And that desire can be just as powerful.
Absolutely.
And just as dangerous.
Especially in today's world, where we're constantly bombarded with information.
It's like we're surrounded by siren songs, all vying for our attention.
Right.
And shaping our perception of the world.
And that's where the original siren myth becomes so relevant.
Right.
It's not just about resisting temptation.
Okay.
It's about cultivating critical thinking.
Yes.
And discernment. Yeah. We need to be aware of like the siren songs that surround us. Right. Recognize the power that they wield and choose wisely which ones we actually heed.
It's about being aware of those like seductive narratives, those quick and easy answers that might lead us astray.
Right.
It's about remembering that knowledge can be both a blessing and a curse.
Precisely. It can enlighten us.
Yeah.
It can empower us.
Oh, sure.
It can help us navigate like the complexities of life, but it can also be used to manipulate, to deceive, and to control.
For sure.
And it's our responsibility to use it wisely, to be aware of its potential for both good and ill.
That's a powerful message and one that feels particularly relevant in our current time.
Absolutely.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into the siren myth, what are some key takeaways for our listeners?
Yeah.
Well, it feels like we've been on quite the journey.
Yeah.
Exploring the evolution of the siren myth from ancient Greece to the modern day.
We really have.
From bird women to snake-tailed temptresses to tragic mermaids.
Right.
The siren has taken on so many forms over the centuries. But still, like despite all those transformations, there's something about the siren that just keeps captivating us.
It's true.
Why do you think that is?
Well, I think it's because the siren myth really taps into something deep within like the human psyche.
Okay.
It speaks to our fears, our desires, and our fascination with the unknown. You know, the siren is both alluring and dangerous.
Right.
It's a symbol of both beauty and destruction.
Yeah.
And that duality is incredibly compelling.
It's like she embodies those things that both draw us in and make us afraid at the same time.
Exactly. I think that's why the siren myth has endured for so long.
Right.
You know, it reflects the complexities of human nature and the challenges that we face in navigating a world full of temptation and uncertainty.
So after all this exploration, what can we say about the question we posed at the beginning? Are sirens and mermaids the same thing?
It's a really tricky question.
Yeah.
They've definitely become intertwined in popular culture.
Right.
But I do think there's still a distinction to be made.
Right.
The mermaid, especially in these modern interpretations, often represents a longing for connection, transformation, and self-acceptance.
Right, like Ariel in The Little Mermaid.
Yes.
Willing to give up everything for love and a chance to be part of another world.
Precisely. While the siren, with its ancient roots in knowledge and prophecy, retains a sense of mystery and danger, it's a reminder that knowledge can be seductive.
For sure.
And that the pursuit of understanding can sometimes lead us down these, like, dangerous paths.
It's almost like sirens whisper, come closer, and I'll show you the secrets of the universe. But you're never quite sure what the price of that knowledge might be.
That's a great way to put it.
Yeah.
The siren represents the allure of the unknown.
Yeah.
The seductive power of information. And the risks associated with seeking answers. It's a cautionary tale, but also an invitation to explore, to question, and to embrace the complexities of knowledge.
So the next time you hear the word siren, I hope you'll think beyond just the image of a tailed temptress.
Yeah.
And remember this rich history and like the layered meanings behind this enduring mythical figure.
Think about those bird women of ancient Greece.
Yeah.
The anxieties about female power that shaped the Sirens' image in the Middle Ages.
Right.
And the modern interpretations that embrace transformation and self-acceptance.
This deep dive has just scratched the surface.
We really have.
There's so much more to explore with these ancient myths and how they continue to resonate in our modern world.
Absolutely.
What other mythical figures deserve a closer look?
Right.
What mysteries are you curious about?
Yeah.
Let us know what you'd like to explore next.
Until then, keep questioning, keep exploring, and keep diving deep into this fascinating world of myth and meaning.
And remember,
yes,
knowledge might be power.
It might be.
But it's also a responsibility. Choose your sirens wisely.